we'll be talking about the leadership crisis happening in NANS, and we'll be asking, has student unionism failed? Now, student union in Nigeria has historically been a powerful force for activism, advocacy, and democratic engagement. However, recent events suggest a troubling decline in its integrity, with allegations of political godfatherism, with allegations of intimidation and violent confrontations becoming increasingly common. There's also the alleged involvement of tinubu in the NANS leadership crisis, raising concerns about the extent of which external political interest now dictates student union affairs. If true, the claim that a presidential family member is interfering in student politics, including threats of violence, signals a dangerous erosion of student autonomy. It also calls into a question whether student unions still serve as independent platform for youth representation, or if they've been co-opted by powerful political actors. This incident invites a broader discussion, and the question is, has student unionism in Nigeria failed? Has it strayed away from its original purpose of championing students' rights and holding authorities accountable? Or is there a chance it could still be salvaged? Through reforms, through stronger leaderships and resistance against external control? Well, we'd love to hear your thoughts. What were students' union, what were they like then? And, at this point in Nigeria, do they still have their voice like they used to? Do they still hold their waters and their grounds like they used to? Are they really being influenced by external political affairs, or they have a hand and more say in what is happening within them? We're seeing so many oppositions and people who are meant to hold the government accountable facing internal crisis. And the student union is one of them at this point in time. So what exactly is happening? What are your expectations of them? Has the union failed? Student unionism, does it still have the mouth and the say it used to have back then? We'll take your calls as you share your experience and explore, potential solutions to the issue. The numbers are displayed on your screen. The phone lines are open. The WhatsApp lines are open. Do want to call either of the numbers. There are two numbers, so call either of them and also send a WhatsApp message to the second number. We'll be here to have that conversation with you. And, get your phones closed. Let's get talking. And let's hear our first caller this morning. Good morning. Tell us your name and where you're calling from.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right. Tell us your name and where you're calling from.
Good morning, Lilian Ogazi. You are speaking with Shetima Yakudima, calling from Maiduguri.
Good morning, Shetima. Thank you for joining us. How is Maiduguri today? I hope it's calm.
Maiduguri, alhamdulillah, we have recovered from the shock.
Okay. All right, go ahead with your thoughts.
You are talking about the student unionism, whether it has failed. Well, I cannot say it has failed. Due to some reasons. If you look at very well, the mood of election or selection of the members also matters. Because nowadays, you have to be romancing the management of your department before you scale through. It's unlike before, when there was a room for just pre-selection or election under the union chief. But now you have to be close to your lecturers. And they are the ones that will be detecting what you will do in that office. That one also contributed towards their weaknesses. And another thing is fear of victimization, because if you become so radical to say that you will protect the interests of your colleague, you will fall victim. This is a fact. That's why we find ourselves in this country. By the time you say you will stand firm and be challenging them, you will fall victim. And thirdly, issue of security personnel. Whenever you have been seeking for your rights, or you come out to make a protest upon your rights. And you can see recently what happened in one of the polytechnics, where they had been preparing tear gas for them. Instead to call them and sit down with them and just iron issue out. They had been preparing tear gas for them as the way they do to their to their parents during this hunger strike. So that's the fundamental problem, and also internet threats. They have been threatening the top officials of the union. By the time you do this, you do that, that you will face the consequences. I think their hands had been tied off. They cannot do anything. It's all like before. When you are talking about the vibration or the active era of that unionism, they have given them open room. You can decide and you can test the government. You can and the government have a census to sit down with you and listen to you, and they will protect you. And before I know we have witnessed so many student riots. They have done the worst, but nobody ever peering a tear gas on them. You see, that's the fundamental problem that we're having. So I think our leaders, they have to be fair. This treatment that they are doing, they do not witness it. They do not experience it during their own time. Why now they have become so tyrant? They are maltreating their own children, their own grandchildren. It's not good. They have to think twice. That's my contributions. Thank you so much. May Allah bless us.
God bless Nigeria. Thank you so much, Shatima. Shatima has made a point that the political space has changed compared to what it used to be before. The education system has changed. There's a level of victimization, there's a level of threats, there's a level of bullying for students who speak up and really hold on to their words. Now, Students' Union back in those days used to be a solid voice against injustice happening in the university environment, in the states, in the nation as well. They had a voice and they were able to speak up. But like we said, there's always that external infiltration that happens. That's why we're asking, with all the drama that is happening, the tussle for leadership, even in the student union. Same way we're seeing tussle for leadership in political parties. The student union, who are young people, who are expected to, if you can handle leadership at that level and show that you could get your house organized, it shows that there's a chance, for youth in governance from the student union, because they're used to governance and used to handling that. There's a chance, that them in affairs of governance would make a difference or see a difference due to how much their unionism and activism push for things, pushing for things for Nigerian students. But Shatima has said that the political landscape has changed since then, hence we're seeing the difference, so he doesn't really blame them. But with phone lines are still open, and let's hear diverse opinions this beautiful morning. So if you're watching, do well to call in. The question is displayed on your screen. Has a student unionism failed in Nigeria at this point in time? A lot has been spoken. From advocacy, they've been known to advocate for issue-based advocacy, things that affect Nigerians. But would you say they've been turned into a political move or political tool at this point in time? So many things in Nigeria is being politicized, and there are some certain things that should be left to be the way they are because they are the voice of the masses. And I believe the student union is one of that. Pushing for the rights of students, pushing for the rights of Nigerian youth, pushing for youth to be in position of power so they could push, things that would benefit the youth and young people in the nation at large. So what exactly is happening? Has this union failed? What is the way forward? What could be done differently? How could it be resurrected? Well, let's hear your thoughts on it. The phone lines are still open. We'd love to know what exactly your thoughts are on the show this morning. Now, historically, student unions have played a pivotal role in national discourse and activisms. During the colonial era and the early years of independence, they were at the forefront of advocating for social justice. They were at the forefront of advocating for political reforms and even national development. Then the National Union of Nigerian Students and the predecessor to NANS was instrumental in mobilizing students for various national courses. And in the 1980s, when NANS emerged as a formidable force championing the rights of students, holding government accountable, their activism was characterized by organized protest, intellectual debate, and policy advocacy. However, over the years, there has been a noticeable decline in the vibrancy and independence of student union, with increasing allegations of politicization and external influence, which is where, the part of the allegations of the external influence from, tinubu in the affairs of student union and politicization. What exactly is happening? Do they still have their voice like they used to? Now, there's also a case of a factional dispute where, there have been lots of factional disputes and a lot of controversy going on in the student union. But the current challenge facing NANS has highlighted a deviation from the core principle of student unionism. The allegations of external political interference, internal factionalism, and leadership disputes suggest a weakening of the association's autonomy and effectiveness. And this is not just happening in the student union, it's even happening across all the political parties we have in Nigeria. So it's like that infiltration is holding the oppositions down and not giving them the opportunity to hold the government accountable where necessary. We're seeing things that are playing out in bigger political parties also playing out in the student union, where the youth and those unions have been a loud voice when it comes to championing policy advocacy and issues that affect young people in the country. At this point, due to what is happening, would you say they are still performing like they used to? The phone lines are open. We also have our WhatsApp messages there that is also open. So do well to send in your messages on WhatsApp and also, give us a call. Let's hear your thoughts this morning. All right. We're talking about student union. And then do you think at this point, is it possible for the student union to stay completely independent of political parties? Is that even realistic? Can they stay completely independent of political parties and political interference? What chances do they even have if they can't put their house in order? What chances do they have of producing a young person that would eventually grow up and grow in power and rank to contest for a political office? What chances do they have of putting their voices together and supporting a young person who is vying for a political position because they know that the person is going there for the best interest of the youth and to put the interest of the youth on the table and at the forefront? If the youth, if their house is not in order, or at this point with how the house is not in order, should it be suggested that the government should run, fund, or regulate, or let the students keep running it entirely on their own, where we're not seeing anything coming out of it just yet? And the question still stays: do you trust youth-led organizations today? We've seen youth. I know as a student in school back then, we had our union, our association, where we push for issues that affected us in the department, through the president of the department, through the union of the department. And even at that, we still had year in, year out, we had cases of corruption. We had a case where one of the departmental presidents took his results, packed the entire money in the department and ran away. And that was, at that point, I realized, corruption had started. You find inflation in prices. You people need tickets for an event, and then you're dashing it to people you want to dash it to. Those that are paying at inflated prices. This kind of governance was happening back then at departmental level. I can't even imagine what it's going to be like at a national level. We also had the national president of our department back then, and we know the level of corruption that was going on there, especially if you happen to be an executive or you find yourself close to the executives back then, just as departmental union. Now imagine what it is at the national level, where you're now getting attention of government and political office holders who might want to use you as a tool and bring the attraction, which is money, cash attraction to it. Could that be what is leading to what we're seeing today? Or do you agree with Shetima's point of view where he said that the political space has changed over time, hence making it not really easy for the student unions to raise their voice like they used to or like they should? What are your expectations from them? Let's hear from the next caller this morning. Good morning. Tell us your name and where you're calling from. Good morning. Can you hear me? Okay. It seems we're having a bit of network glitch this morning. Do well to call in, send in your messages on WhatsApp as well. If you can't reach us, do well to send a message on WhatsApp and we'll be here to take it. And there are both numbers displayed on your screen, so do well to call either of them and let's hear your thoughts. So it's still talking about to the older generations, yes, to the likes of Shatima. Let's take the next call. Good morning. Tell us your name and where you're calling from.
My name is Olubenga Fale.
Good morning, Benga. Go ahead with your thoughts.
Yeah, actually, there's no way this students' unionism can be separated from the politics. The politicians have infiltrated into the students' unionism in Nigeria. And I believe it's not only in Nigeria, they are using them for their own political gains. They believed that once they can get hold of the student leaders, then they will use them to oil their own political gain. They will use them in order to get what they want and not what the students want. So in other words, what is happening now is what cannot be stopped. Nobody can stop. It happens in all the states of the federation, so it will happen at the federal level too. Just like you are talking about the tinubu trying to infiltrate the students' union in order to get their leaders. Of course, those students too, they are not united. I think if they are united, they should be able to put their house in order and not allow the politicians to infiltrate them. So my own advice to the students is to make sure that they are one. They should not allow the politicians to penetrate them, because they are the leaders of tomorrow. So if the leaders of tomorrow could be bought over because of peanuts, and they can be bought over with money, I think it is going to spell a doom for them in future. And if care is not taken, the election they're going to hold is going to be characterized with a lot of chaos. The trust will not be there. So I advise the students to remain one, united, and should not allow politicians to infiltrate or penetrate them for anything. That is my own advice to them. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Benga. God bless you there for your thoughts. You know, he has said that it is somewhat slightly impossible for this to stop because of, you know, involvement of politicians, which is inevitable at this point in time. And he explains a lot on the attitude of people. Do we still have the kind of student or the kind of union leaders we used to have in Nigeria back then? You know, the union leaders back then were fearless. They were ready to fight. They were incorruptible. They wouldn't take money because they were fighting for a greater cause that was bigger than that little peanut they would take. But nowadays, you find people fighting tooth and nail to become leaders of union groups just because of the financial gains, thereby losing what it is that that union stands for or what that union is advocating for. There were times where, you know, would love to throw light, you know, to our callers. What was student union like in your days? I remember back then in school, if you're joining the National Association of Nigerian Students, you know that you're joining it for a cause. You know that you're advocating for something solid. Even the departmental executives, then, if you're joining it, you know you're joining it because, something needs to be fixed in the classrooms. We need to talk to a lecturer to stop this attitude regarding this. We need to go to, you know, the VC to talk about this, you know, for the national or for the entire body, for the school. They had a cause they were fighting for. They were incorruptible, they were firm, they were vicious, they were ready to fight for things needed. But now at this point, we don't even hear their voice as much as they used to. And it is easy for them to be penetrated or infiltrated because of what they're saying in the political space and the financial attractiveness from the political space there into their unions. They're getting these peanuts just to keep their mouth shut or take their activism the wrong way or favor a different person. Hence, when it's time for them to speak up or have a say or put their house in order, it will be very difficult because, like they said, when you dine with the devil, be ready to dance to his tunes. So they've already dined and they can't even speak up just the way they should. So at this point, what do you think is the biggest problem facing the Students' Union in Nigeria? Because they need to speak up. They need to get youths involved. They need to speak up on behalf of the youth. But it seems their house is not even in order just yet. So what do you think is the biggest problem? And, how can it be addressed? How can it be fixed? What are the solutions? So in as much as we'll highlight the problems, let's also talk about the solutions and what can be done to fix it. The phone lines are open. We'll be here to take your thoughts. We'll also have our WhatsApp lines open as well. We'll be here to take your WhatsApp messages. So do well to send in your messages. If you can't connect on either of the numbers showing on your screen, do well to send your WhatsApp messages and we'll be here to take it. The question still stands on NANS leadership crisis. Has student unionism failed? Given a back history of what they used to be, would you say they have failed at this point in time? Would you say they have lost their voice? Would you say they have lost their integrity and lost that, push they usually have to push for the right thing or for advocate for the right thing? Would you say they have failed, or they still have that fire in them till date? They still have that voice that when they speak up, through their protest or their policy advocacy or kicking against, things that are being put in place, would you say they still have that voice like they used to? We'd love to hear your thoughts. If you are of the, throw light to the glory days of student unionism and what it used to be vis-a-vis what it is now. We'd love to hear how powerful they were in the past, how they led, protests, how they challenged the government, how they pushed for education reforms. The education system is something that at this point we expect the student union to be talking about it every day. Want to hear what the students are saying. Do well to call in and let's hear your thoughts. But we have a WhatsApp message here from Comrade Nansat from Jos. And he says, it is quite unfortunate that active student unionism have become a mini pseudo-political party that is always in coalition with every government in place. Gone are the days when we had the likes of Emmanuel Ezazu and Kayode Ogundamisi, aka Thomas Sankara. Today, what we have is a third leg of every politician that will fund their excesses and thugs in campuses as well as political rallies. NANS have woefully failed. My take, indeed. Thank you so much. Comrade Nansat is coming here to say that NANS have failed, but we have Shetima on the other end saying that they might have failed, but knowing the kind of political space we have and how it works in Nigeria, it's probably possible they are playing safe. So all these are angles to explore. Do you think they have failed? Do you think they are playing safe? Who really leads the students now at this point in time? Are they being led by their own leadership and their union, or they are being led by the affiliated political parties or politicians who are infiltrating them at this point in time? Are they still fighting and championing the cause of students? Are they still fighting and championing things that will make the lives of students easier? Are they still championing, things that would make students survive or thrive in school? Now, remember way back then in school where they had an issue of no water in the hostels for a very long time, as long as 2 weeks, where students were suffering to fetch water and all. I saw how the student union of then pushed and fought. I said, even if you've not fixed the borehole, make sure there's water available for students. And that through what they did, they were bringing water in tankers every evening for students to fetch and have access to water. That was a result of student unionism. But at this point, if something is going negative, even on campuses, let's not even talk of national issues, even on campuses, if things are going negatively, are the student unions there to fight for what, for what is done? We've taken this message from Comrade Nasser just, but it's right there. You could take a look at it, where he spoke about how the student union have failed, woefully, and how it's no longer fighting for the needs of Nigerian students. All right, we have the next message. The next WhatsApp message is from Ayuba from Gombe, to be displayed on your screen shortly. He says, student union has failed drastically compared to this era. It is in this era that NANS and SUGs of many Nigerian institutions are appointed rather than based on election by school heads or government authorities to protect their interests rather than the students. On the contrary, if you want to protect the interests of students, you will be stepping on some big toes which attract some CEO and a long dismissal. During my tertiary days, the SG president was made to pay negatively for a series of CEOs and late graduation from school. This is a training ground for youth which should be with no interference, whether internal or external. Indeed, that is exactly where Shetima came from. You put your voice excessively out there, you will be threatened. You will most likely be out there facing extension of school, or your results will hang somewhere and there is no logical explanation as to why you have not graduated, and they will say, oh no, it's because you are carrying student union on your head, you're taking it too seriously, that is why you have not been able to focus on your studies. So it also explains the fact that they might have failed, but could it be for a certain reason? Could it be that in as much as I want to push for the right of students, I want to also have a life and graduate from school? But then again, the student union of those days were so vocal that they didn't even care about that. You wouldn't even dare hold them back. You won't even dare tamper with their results, because first of all, they'll be acing their papers. They are good students, committed to passing. They'll be acing it in such a way that you can't even hold them back, because you know their voices would speak out. So at this point, yes, SUGs, I remember SUG election, and it was like a child's play because people didn't really go out to vote, because that notion of there's no need now, the school already know who they will put there, was existing. And yes, it does happen. We have the next message from Baba Jalingo. He said, honestly, student unionism is intact and do not fail. Aluta always continue in the struggle. Rather, it is Nigerian democracy that has failed. You know, thank you very much for your thought there. He's of the opinion that the Aluta is still continuing and the struggle is still there, but it is the democracy that has failed. And the failure of the democracy is, you know, if democracy has failed, it's definitely infiltrating into the students' union, which is meant to fight for the rights of the people. Even beyond the students' union, we find other unions, you know, that are meant to fight and push for the rights of people, having issues, facing internal crisis, facing leadership crisis. Everybody wants to be at the helm of affairs. To what gains? Is it for really fighting for the people, or financial gains, or their own personal pocket gains? To what gains exactly? That's why we're asking, has the student union failed Nigerian students, or there's more that can be done, or there's a chance that they are probably recouping and trying to rebuild better? These are all the angles we're establishing and we're exploring this morning. Now, we're also looking at, you know, the fact that youth in governance starts from there says a lot. And it opened my eyes back then on how corruption thrives in Nigeria. I gave an example of my department where the president, for both the departmental level and the national level, I think, which was even what the national level was worse, because we had a union gathering of all Nigerian students in there for that department, for my department, and the national president, you know, wasn't releasing funds for things because the funds that was meant to be there. Imagine each student of over 36 universities paying 5,000 naira each, and you have to come with at least 20 to 25 for 30 students, all paying 5,000 naira each for their affairs. This took place at the Kuba orientation camp where people camped, and the president then just eloped with the money. The money was not seen. He wasn't seeing things that were meant to be done to keep, you know, for feeding, for, you know, events that were meant to be organized. The money was just gone. So this explains, if this is happening at this level, what will happen at the higher level if this person gets in the political seat? Let's take our last caller this morning. Good morning. Tell us your name and where you're calling from.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Go ahead with your thoughts.
Okay. I think that we are talking about National Association of Nigeria Students, Unionism, and activism in Nigeria.
Yes.
Well, over the years, it has been, the activism in NANS has been reducing to the fact that it has been bastardized by politicians. The Nigerian politicians want to take advantage of this union for themselves in order to get political gains from it. When the students are organized, or maybe they are on their own, they can fight better for themselves. But if as politicians come in with their money bags, with their influence, with every kind of engagement, you just see that they politicize the NANS itself, and it becomes polarized. With that now, they are no longer fighting for themselves or fighting for their students. So it makes it difficult for them to actually have a proper way forward for the students. Because everything they do is supposed to be for the protection and for the upliftment of the Nigerian students throughout the country. And they also have a say in national issues, in critical national issues. It is when the union is strong that they can do that. But the politician wants to make sure they polarize it, get different segments or factions. So that is what is going on. And recently we now heard that the president's son is now even involved. Imagine.
Okay. All right.
It's now even, we are now having two factions of inauguration. One was thwarted, the other one was allowed to go. You cannot even say, this is a proper way of doing things. So it's obvious that the politicians are the one playing the games. The president's son is being used by somebody even in higher office to polarize the system. We know what Unionism was during the military era. It was the Soviet Union was part of those organized groups that was able to save this country.
All right. Thank you so much there for your thoughts this morning. You know, you have laid emphasis on the fact that there are a lot playing out in the political space, and it's no doubt is actually affecting the youth governance compared to what it used to be. Thank you so much for your thoughts, and you know, it was good to have you as our last caller this morning. To everyone who called in and sent in their WhatsApp messages, we say a big thank you for joining us on the show this morning. We've come to the end of this segment, so we'll be going on a quick break. When we get back, we'll be continuing on, you know, stories inclined with the youth and 2027 election. Do stay tuned. We'll be right back.